attention to it until they brought it to my attention. Both boys are now working to build their own channel and create content aspiring to follow in your footsteps. Thank you for being such a positive influence on them. Now, first of all, I haven't got my diamond plate yet. Yeah, they might beat me to that one, but let me see them jerky. Can I get about this jerky? You don't think he's too young to stop?
All opinions are those of the participants making them and are not an endorsement of any position, program, religion, or political affiliation. DFG's Corner is for information, observations, and entertainment. I ask that you like, share, comment, and subscribe.
Welcome, everybody. This is DFG. Welcome to the corner. I'm the man with the golden voice, the lady's choice, and of course, smooth as a Rolls Royce. I'm coming to you live from the 571, where I'm having fun and I'm getting things done. Tonight's show, last week we talked about relationships and marriage between generations. This time we're going to go a little farther back. Same premise, but different audience. We're looking at teenage love. Now, whether your your orientation doesn't matter, you had a first love. You had as a teenager, unless you were classified as asexual, you had a first love. You had a first crush. You had a first person to make your stomach do flip flops and butterflies and just oohs and ahs. We're going to talk about that and how different generations dealt with that over the years because like I said, we got a couple of boomers in here, we got a couple of Gen Xers, we got a couple of millennials. And overall, all of our style of dating and how we first encountered significant others has changed a lot from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the aughts, tens, and now halfway on the other side of the 20s. So I got a little video on the show. It's a little long, but I think it'll cover what we want to talk about today. But before I go on, I want to holler out to my co-host, my favorite girl, Chocolate Pearl. What's going on? What's going on? What's up?
Hey, 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 y'all, it's Chocolate Pearl calling you from Duval. I'm
That's
excited
what's
about this.
up.
I'm excited about this show. Let's get it cracking lacking.
Definitely. And I want to
And
thank
hello,
everybody out
everyone.
there in TikTok land. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a phone, tell a friend. DFG is back again. And all about we're gonna do this and start this with this. Teenage love has always existed, but how teens fall in love, express affection, and navigate relationships has shifted dramatically across generations due to changing social norms, technology, and emotional expectations. Hey there, curious hearts and love detectives. Welcome to Across the Ages, Teenage Love Through the Generations, the show where we peek behind the curtain of young romance, shake loose some dusty myths, and laugh along the way. I'm your host, DFG, the man with the golden voice, the lady's choice, and of course, smooth as a Rolls Royce. And today we're setting out on a whimsical journey through the wild, wonderful world of teenage love. Now, let's just admit it. Teenage love has been around forever. Like, since the first awkward glances over school lunch tables, or maybe even over hunter-gatherer campfires, who knows? No matter where you grew up, or what decade you rocked your first heartbreak, one thing's for sure. Teens have always been falling in love, dreaming big, and sometimes making a bit of mess along the way. But here's where it gets interesting. While the butterflies in your stomach feeling is timeless, the how of falling in love has changed in some seriously dramatic ways. Today's teens might be sending heart emojis or swiping right, while their grandparents wrote love letters or nervously asked for a date under the watchful gaze of parents. Social norms shift, technology evolves, and the expectations, well, those seem to get a bit more complicated every generation. Stick around, because in this episode, we're diving deep into what stayed constant: hormones, Yep, those things never take a break. And of course, they're always spelled with a W and end with MONAS. The quest for identity, the influence of friends, and that universal desire to belong. And then we'll explore how the rules, risks, freedoms, and tools have changed, sometimes in surprising ways. So buckle up, grab your favorite snack, and let's embark on a journey through the ages of teenage romance. Whether you're reminiscing about your own teenage crush or just curious about how different generations navigate the tricky waters of young love, this podcast is for you. Ready? Let's get started. Across every generation, teenage love is shaped by hormones, identity formation, peer influence, and the desire for belonging. What changes is the context, the rules, risks, freedoms, and tools available to teens. Below is a structured, evidence-grounded synthesis of how teenage love has evolved, drawing from generational relationship research and cultural analysis. The silent generation, born 1928 through 1945. Their thing was love, duty, stability, early commitment. Dating was formal, supervised, and oriented towards marriage. Gender roles were rigid. Emotional expressions were restrained. So there wasn't no baby mamas out there screaming, "Where are my diapers at? Where are my diapers at?" Baby boomers, 1946 through 1964. Teen dating became more romantic and expressive, as well as expensive, influenced by music, movies, and youth culture. There was more freedom to date without supervision. That's because your parents probably were trying to feed your behinds. And love shifted towards personal fulfillment, not just obligation. Get that? That's where those, those places where you had makeout sessions. Generation X, 1965 through 1980. Teens balance independence with skepticism. Of course, most of us were latchkey kids, so yeah. Many of the children were of rising divorce rates. I talked about that last week. Dating has become more casual. Emotional boundaries and autonomy mattered. Gender rules loosened. Relationships were less scripted. Millennials, 1981 through 1996. The first generation shaped by the internet and texting. Teen love emphasized emotional intelligence, compatibility, and self-growth. Online crushes, AIM, MySpace, and the early social media reshaped flirting. They did a lot more online than they did offline, although they still did a lot offline. Generation Z, 1997 through 2012. Teen love is an inclusive, fluid, and authenticity driven. Technology is central, but not in the way older generations assume. 79% of Gen Z college students still prefer meeting partners in person despite being digital natives. They create new love languages like music sharing, mental health support, and social justice alignment. Social media helps shape affirmation, but also pressure. Teens also value communication, emotional safeties, and boundaries more than previous generations. How technology changed teenage love. Baby boomers wrote long, expressive messages. Gen Z averages 6-word messages. Social media is now a primary platform for words of affirmation among young generations. Dating apps compressed communication and created new forms of digital courtship. What's driving the differences? Let's look across generations. Teenage love is shaped by cultural norms, traditional versus fluids, technologies from letters to phone calls to texting to DMs. Gender expectation, boy pays, girl says yes or no. Economic and social pressures. Hey, you ain't got no girl yet? You ain't got no guy? Mental health awareness. I like them a little crazy. And family dynamics, supportive family versus conflict-heavy environments. We all know who's been through those. What makes Gen Z different? Gen Z teens are rewriting the script by prioritizing authenticity over performance, rejecting stoic masculinity, and embracing vulnerability. Value mental health literacy and relationships, using technology as a tool not as a replacement for a connection. I kind of disagree with that. They do use it as a replacement because a lot of them can't meet in person. They are the first generation to treat emotional safety as a non-negotiable. Millennials, because they sit at the hinge point between analog and digital, traditional and modern, stoic masculinity and emotional literacy. They're the generation that rewrote teenage love without fully realizing it. Let's look at a structured breakdown. The core identity of millennial teen love. Millennial teen love was defined by contradiction, deep emotional intensity, and awkward emotional skills. They were the first teens to fall in love through screens, AIM, MySpace, and early texting. They were first to navigate relationships through the rise of divorce culture. Be told to follow your heart while also being warned about ruining your future. Experience mental health struggles without vocabulary Gen Z has now. They were emotionally hungry, but emotionally under-equipped. You can say that about Gen X also. The emotional logic of millennial teen love. Love as an identity formation. Millennial teens didn't just date, they became someone through dating. Their relationships were a personality, a status symbol, a source of validation, and a way to escape chaotic home environments. This was a generation that popularized "we're talking, we're complicated, we're exclusive but not official," the beginning of the infamous situationships. Ambiguity was the norm because emotional clarity wasn't taught. Love as an escape. Many millennials grew up in high conflict homes, single parent households, latchkey environments. So teenage relationships often felt like refuge, stability, and an emotional home. This is why millennial teen breakups were catastrophic. They weren't just losing a partner, they were losing their safe space and support system. Love as performance. Millennials were the first teens to perform love online. MySpace Top 8. Away messages with song lyrics. Facebook relationship status. Early selfies and couples photos. Love wasn't just felt, it was curated. This created pressure, comparison, jealousy, and emotional surveillance, but also creativity, shared digital intimacy, and new forms of flirting. Gender expectation among millennial teens. Millennial teen boys were expected to be cool, detached, funny, slightly emotionally unavailable, but internally deeply insecure. They craved attention and affection, and they were terrified of being vulnerable. They were raised by stoic Gen X dads, emotionally exhausted boomer parents. So they learned, don't be soft, don't be cold either, just figure it out. Millennial teen girls, on the other hand, expected to be emotionally mature, nurturing, forgiving, and relationship oriented, but also independent, ambitious, and self-sufficient. They were told, be a boss, but also be nice. Don't be needy. Don't be distant. Contradictions shaped everything. Technology's impact on millennial love. AIM and MSN Messenger. This was the birthplace of late night emotional intimacy. Confessions typed but never spoken. The art of dramatic away message. The typing, deleting, typing emotional roller coaster. Texting changed everything. Constant connection, instant reassurance, instant conflict, as well as instant miscommunication. Social media created jealousy loops, comparison culture, public breakups, and digital receipts, but also new love languages, shared playlists, and digital inside jokes. The psychological landscape, attachment patterns. Millennial teens were more likely to show anxious attachment, fear of abandonment, avoidant attachment, fear of vulnerability. Why? Rising divorce rates, economic instability, inconsistent parenting, and early exposure to adult problems. Their mental health, they had high anxiety, high depression, and low emotional vocabulary, but felt deeply but didn't know how to articulate it. What made millennial teens love unique? Emotional intensity without emotional tools. Felt everything at 100 but communicated at 10. Technology that connected but confused. Digital intimacy without digital boundaries. Gender roles in transition. Now, not modern, not traditional, not modern, just messy. Relationships as identity. Who you dated shaped who you are. Breakups were trauma because breakups were emotional homes. The legacy millennials left behind. Millennials walked so Gen Z could talk openly about mental health, set boundaries, reject toxic masculinity, normalize therapy, and value emotional safety. Millennials didn't have the language, but they created the conditions for it. We're coming to the end of part one of a multi-part series called Teenage Love Across Generations. Next week, I'll talk about Gen X, Gen Z, as well as the lady boomer stuff. Y'all stay good. This is DFG. Never make love by the garden gate. Though love is blind, the neighbors ain't. Be good. What did you think about that, Big Al?
It was very enlightening. And being a baby boomer, I was going through a transition in time and how dating for me coming up was so different. And of course, we didn't have internet and texting. So I communicated with my girlfriend through a love letter. I would give it to her at school. So you didn't have phones where you could text and call, but you had a party line, which was an analog uh, rotary dial phone where there were 5 or 6 different families sharing the same phone. So it was a first come, first serve. And before I got my first car, I chose my girlfriends based upon geographical location. Were they close enough that I could walk to the house or ride my bicycle to the house? And in high school, of a high school that had about 3,000 students, there were only 3 guys in the whole high school who had cars. So we were the most popular guys having cars. But when you went on date, it was normally a double date with your best friend. And you typically went to the drive-through movie. From a sexual perspective, you normally did it in the car. And if you didn't do it in the car, we had, at least in Louisiana, these $2 an hour motels where you can get a room for $2. And if you wanted to, for an hour, and if you wanted to go longer than that hour, then you had to get up and walk down to the office and give them another $2. Otherwise, they were knocking on the door. So a lot of different changes for me as a baby boomer as I look at my children and grandchildren and the dating environment and culture that they live in.
So what age were you when you had your first crush?
I was 13. That's when I got my first, what we used to call back then, tongue kiss, which is French kissing now. But the first time I got some tongue and first time I slow dragged, I was 13.
Did you do the bow out when you slow drag so you wouldn't offend her?
I tried not to, but imagine the testosterone and hormones at 13 years old. I'm starting to get hair in different parts of my body. My voice is getting a little deeper and a lot of other change. I tried to put the bow in my back, but she was a little aggressive. She pulled me in, and it was all over at that point.
Exactly. Trust me. I'm sure Big Dabs probably had the same. We all had that same thing at 13. Well, I didn't get my first slow drag, and I'm kind of lame, but I didn't get my first slow drag till I was 17. I can tell you exactly when. It was Chocolate Pearl's best friend's Sweet 16 party. My crew was DJing. The party was hot. It was a pretty good party. And at the end of the night, everybody started breaking off, Chocolate Pearl was dating one of my friends, so um, there was like everybody cleared, and the girl's birthday, the girl whose birthday party it was, her cousin was from Staten Island, which if you don't know New York, Staten Island's like a different country. Nobody goes over there. But anyway, and it was I was behind usually because my friends all had girlfriends and I was the only guy that didn't have one. So when it came time to slow jams, people would go to the floor. So I get on there and start playing. I get on there and start playing the records. Well, the girl I wanted to dance with didn't want to dance with me, so I was like, okay. And then her cousin came and we danced, and I had to do the bow thing, and she drove me in. I was like, oh gosh, I was like, man. But my first crush, I was 11 years old in sixth grade,
Wow.
and I'm not gonna mention the name, but I still, we still communicate to this day, but ain't nothing ever gonna happen. But that's, how, you always remember your first crush, and I didn't get to touch no breast until I was about 16. So yeah.
At 16, I already had 2 kids.
Oh man, you was fast. You you
Yeah.
was you was fast, fast. No, I was too lame to have kids.
Yeah.
Big Dabs, when did you have your first crush?
Oh, geez, first crush. Um, I think it was, I think I was in third grade. There was this girl, we lived in California because I hadn't moved here yet. Man, yeah, I think I was third grade. And we moved from California here, or from California to Washington. And I was so crushed because I had to leave her behind. My dad was in the military, and their family was in the military as well. And yeah, and it was it's funny because yeah, it was a big crush. So, and we kind of hang out. It was kind of like it was we third grade. You wouldn't call it dating. You was just we hung out, was really good friends, and um and then they moved to somewhere else. We moved, then we all both end up in Washington again. Uh, and at that time, I was dating somebody else, so it wasn't a big thing. But that teenage, or that, I guess you can't even call it teenage, that little little kid crush, I guess, is different than your teenage years. But it was, yeah, that's the one I remember the most. I remember her name because like I said, we met up later on in life, and then
So
um,
when you lived in Bremerton, did they have like makeout spots that I
oh
used to go
yeah,
to?
yeah, there was a few makeout spots, yeah. Yeah, they had the places where you can go. I had a friend of mine. We used to go to. Well, his mom had like this She had this two-story house, and underneath, so we used to sneak in her little bait. It was like it wasn't really a basement. It was just like a little partition part of the house, so we can go under. We used to go up under there and make out and stuff. That's probably when I was probably around 12, 13 then. So
Wow.
Yeah,
yeah, some
it's
crazy time.
I'm saying, it's interesting to hear other men talking about their first crush and stuff like that, because then you know we all compare each other, so it's like, okay, okay. So but I realized that I was lame. I might have been a decent guy, but I was lame. Apple, the New York City girl, what's going on?
Hey, um, it was a busy day. I helped your younger sister move, and I'm exhausted, but that's why I'm late coming
Where
on.
she moved to?
Well, they relocated her to a different apartment in her complex,
Oh,
so she
okay.
had to work today. So I had to, supervise the movers, and
Did you
then
mess up your back?
I did, I did, but I made it on.
You
I
know,
made
you know
it
what
on.
you know what I be think. You know what I want to say. I ain't gonna say it online, but anyway, when was your first crush?
I was listening to you guys, and I honestly can't remember. I know who it was, but I don't know when I started crushing on him. I want to say maybe fourth grade. And yeah, maybe fourth grade.
How old was he?
He was in the same grade. I beg your pardon, sir.
Hey, hey, you know what I'm talking about. I ain't
He
gotta
was
go. I ain't gotta go no further.
no, he was in the same grade, and we were just friends, but I had the biggest crush on him.
That's cool. That's cool. Chocolate Pearl, what about you?
Well, I was a little hot tail. So I don't know when I had a crush or I'm trying to remember who the first person I had a crush on. Uh, I can't remember. Because I felt a little insecure. So anybody that winked at me, I was in love. Because I didn't think I was attractive. All my other friends, I felt that they was attractive. They had a better body than me. Only thing I had going for me was my butt. That was it. I ain't had no breasts. I didn't have much hips. I just had a big butt. Still to this day, have a big butt. However, um, outside of that, I don't remember exactly when. What you say?
Your first crush.
He's no, he's back there talking about he like his booty, booty. But anyway, um, I'm trying to remember who my first crush was. I want to say it was your friends. I think it was one of your two of your friends. Uh, yeah, I think that's what it was. But one of your main friends had a crush on me, and I really
Yes,
didn't
but
like
he
him
had a
like
crush
that.
on everybody.
Yeah, I really didn't like him like that. But I mean, he was a cool dude, but I didn't like him like that.
Well,
He
But
everybody had crushes on his friends.
yeah,
We
yeah,
all did,
everybody did. Yeah.
but
but ain't nobody had no crush on me, but that's because I was lame. That's another story. Miss
I
Kim,
think
what
that's what
about
you do when
you?
you're younger too, though.
Say it again.
I think that's what you do sometimes when you're younger and your friends, your older friends, brothers, or they bring over their friends. Like my brothers used to have a crush on their girlfriends and stuff.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Miss
You
Kim,
asked me? Yeah. Um, I was in seventh grade with my first crush.
did
I
y'all
went,
did y'all date? Did y'all go out?
oh, heck no. In the seventh grade, my mama didn't play that. No, we only saw each other at school. And I remember he did get my phone number and called me. And my mama was like, little boy, don't be calling my house no more. My daughter too young. So we only saw each other at school. So he was my school crush. Up
Okay.
until something happened with his parents. They were originally from New York, and something happened with his parents, and his parents went to jail, and I think they went back up north with family. Yeah,
How you gonna go to jail from you moved from New York to Georgia to
they
stay
were
out of trouble?
they were some known the parents, which I didn't know much about drugs and stuff like that, but that's what they did. So they were moved from city to city,
Oh, and then they finally got caught. All
and they
right.
got caught. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. That's understandable because we knew some families that did that too, but they ain't go to jail though.
yeah. Mom
They
and
ain't go
daddy
to
went to jail, and the kids went back up north with the grandparents. Yeah.
mm. What about you, Miss Sum Sum? When was your first crush?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey,
Um,
having fun.
yes, I hear you. I hear you. I honestly, I'm with Apple. I can't quite remember well, she remembered the person, but didn't really remember the time. But I cannot really, I mean, I remember having crushes on movie stars and Albie Shore and all of that stuff. I don't think I got a crush because I was a tomboy till like later on in like high school. And then I would see some of the athletes walking around, some of the football players and like, oh, he's cute and stuff like that. But other than that, it was like my head was in the clouds. I was in La La Land over, uh, I don't know. And it's crazy. I even hate to admit it, there wasn't much variety for us in the 80s. And because my first crush that I went crazy for was Michael J. Fox. And yeah, 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 yeah. And so it was crazy, but again, Albie Shore was around that time. Everybody was going crazy over him. Um, and then I'm just trying to remember who else stands out to me. It's hard to remember. It was so much. I remember I love Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson, even with his face and all of his changes around remember the time and all of that stuff. I remember I love Michael Jackson. But other than that, I can't really. And then I had my little Prince phase. I mean,
I was about
I
to
don't
say,
know.
if you like Michael Jackson, you like Prince. If you like
Of
Prince, you
course,
like you like El DeBarge.
yeah. Everybody wanted to be Apollonia at one point, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't remember people specifically. But just more so like movie stars. So
So that's yeah, yeah. I had a major crush on Janet Jackson and Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston first came out. You think I wasn't gonna be my next ex-wife? You'd have been wrong. But yeah, I love me some Whitney Houston. Until she married Bobby Brown, then I was like, oh, I ain't got a chance. But overall, though, you know, it was funny because we would make we would make the mixtapes on the cassettes and give them to girls instead of a love letter. We wrote love letters, and y'all remember passing notes in school, and you would be like, "Hey, do you like me?" Had the box yes or no, and you do stuff like that, and now if you look at how we all have children that are either millennials or Gen Zs, and how they date was a whole lot different because I remember Randall was in second or third grade, and a little girl, she couldn't have been no more than 7, 8. She called in my house. I'm like, little girl, do your parents know you called in my house? And I laughed because I was like, they starting early. But with the internet, the biggest thing was, think about this. We were adults when the internet was the Wild West. I'm talking like if we didn't have children, we were about to have children, and you know, when you could afford internet, you got it, and things was just crazy. So you had to watch out for a lot of stuff, and you had to, we were, like I said, we were more helicopter parents than our parents because, my mother was like, hey, you come home in one piece. That was pretty much her. She was like, live and let live. I could have gone to Kalamazoo and she'd have been like, just be home when it's your bedtime. And we took that to heart. But our kids, we was like, who you with? Who they people? I need to meet this. I need to meet their parents. I need to do this. I need to do that. And you know, we didn't give them the. I don't think we gave them the because we had too much freedom. Most of us. I don't think we gave our kids that type of freedom. And I mean, now that they're mainly adults, for the most part, they've done pretty decent for themselves in terms of finding a decent partner. even though that's like finding a needle in a haystack. But hey, that's what life's about. And they don't, the places where we met growing up at dance, everybody in our era was about going to dances. We were about going to the movies. You go with a bunch of guys, but you go to meet a bunch of girls. When you get out to the mall, you go hang out. Like Chocolate Pearl and I, Apple was too young, but we'd go up to my grandmother's house and hang out up there with our cousins. And it'd just be a group of guys, a group of girls. We go up there, we try to meet people, and it was interesting. They can't do that now because people trying to shoot. You can't you can't be around these people because they're trying to shoot. That's why a lot of stuff's online. So I want to ask you, Big Dabs. You've been on West Coast and East Coast. How have you seen dating changed over the years?
Um, well, I mean, I guess even for, growing up, being dating at the young age and then, dating at the later age, um, it's changed so much because, like it kind of like I think somebody mentioned that, a Big Al, he date by the people that was close to you and far, you couldn't you couldn't go but so far. And you would date, within your school. I mean, a lot of times it's either within your school, or your church. Uh, you know, Other than that, getting reaching out to somebody it wasn't easy as to do as, later on. And um, when I started dating at my earlier age and, you got all this online stuff, you could talk to people from all over the world, really, but, you mostly stayed in close proximity where you were, but still you had that option of,
Yeah, no, but the thing is though is
going further out. So, and
but the big thing though, Dabs, is that what's the difference between
go
your
ahead.
son dating and when you dated?
Oh, shoot, my son dated versus when I dated, I think they did different stuff, I guess. Um, no, at that point in time, not much had changed. It's like you go out, you hang out at the mall, you hang out, maybe go skating. The dating scene was probably still around the same. Kind of did the same stuff. You just did it. Things happened a little faster, I guess. Um, yeah,
Said
that's
Big Al, what about you? Because you've seen three generations now.
Right. Well, for me, the biggest difference I'm seeing now with my grandkids and having grandkids who are in their 20s and dating, there are a lot of sites where you can separate the wheat from the chaff. There's been verified people finder. So there are a lot of things on the internet that you can find out about people and through the Facebook and all those things, you can tell if a person is dating somebody else. So it's hard to cheat now just because of technology and being able to have access. But the biggest difference I see is just the automation where you can speed date too, because you look at a person's profile, look at what they like, what they don't like, and you can pretty much find deal breakers in the profile and you can eliminate them and go to the next person without spending a lot of time on several dates to realize this person ain't for you.
But that's kind of, yeah, that's true. I'm just thinking about it from the getting to know somebody. Usually, like you said, we had to actually go see the person face to face. It was no FaceTime. You had FaceTime in their face. And now, you can do FaceTime, you can do all of this electronic stuff, but do you really get to know the person? That's the question.
Right. You
and
really
usually
don't.
you don't.
you're right. You don't. You see the best version of that person.
Exactly. You see the representative, and
Yeah.
that's and I mean it could be the same way if you're doing a semi long distance. If you're on one side of town and the person you've seen on the other side of town, that's it. In essence, it's the same thing. However, it's not. But the fact that you going to them or they coming to you, it's still a little different than just seeing somebody online because people be wanting to get married to people. They only seen pictures. They ain't even see them in real life. And I fell in love with, that's how the Nigerian prince scandal got so good. Because they say anything online. You say anything online and give a sob story, and those guys and those women just go for it. They like fall all in. You ain't never met the person, but I love her. I loved him, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
Catfishing.
Are you saying that you cannot fall in love with someone after speaking with them for multiple months? That y'all got a
No,
connection? To
I
me,
didn't.
sometimes
It,
that's
it
a
may
truth connection.
no. I'm saying it may not be. It may not be love. That's all I'm gonna say. It may not. It may not be love. It may be. I'm in love with the words. I'm in love with the effort that they put out.
So you're
But
saying until you can see the actions of those words, it's not necessarily love.
that's what I think. That's my opinion, and I know
Oh no, I
nobody.
was asking. I was asking that.
Yeah, yeah, no. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you may not agree. Somebody else may not agree, but that's what I think. If you're always doing stuff online, and and we did the same thing. We had phones. We would talk. You couldn't call nobody before 9 o'clock. So you be on the line for your parents be like, get off that darn phone, running up my bill. Or you run to the corner, you got a couple of dimes, and you talking to your sweet thing for 30, 40 minutes, and that was a lot. But then you made plans to go see them on the weekend, and y'all just figured it out. Miss Dream, what's going on?
I know. Sorry.
So when did you have your first crush?
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I keep thinking about that, and I just keep thinking maybe I don't know. Because sometimes I feel like my first crush was probably like New Edition, like that type of like music stars back then. But like actual dating first crush, I don't. I feel like I don't know. I don't know if it was just different back then or I just don't think it was. I feel like I was busy just being a teenager and being a kid, and I don't even know if that was like into that phase. So that's what different. Like I don't even know if my. I keep trying to think like. I wonder when if my girls realize like who their first crushes were.
So did you go to dances when you were in high school?
Um, I did, but I feel like I mostly hung out with my girlfriends. Like it was a whole like we're gonna wear matching outfits and do this and that type of situation. I don't think it was more so maybe because it was mainly white high school. It was mostly the white boys, but I don't think we were like worried about the boys so much.
But
I
did
felt
y'all? So when y'all wore the same thing, what were y'all looking for?
I mean we were looking for I think attention in the outfits and I don't know. But
Attention from who?
you're right. It was probably it definitely was, but I'm not sure if we were interested in the boys at our school at the time. But yeah.
No, and that makes sense because usually I know because you're from the Northeast, and I know like in New York, we tried not to date people from around our way. We went other places to try to find people
Why?
because they see you every day. You date somebody, especially living in the projects, you see the same people every day.
Oh, okay.
So it's like now we know people that lived in the projects, got married in the projects, had kids in the projects, and passed away in the projects.
No.
But I mean, it was one of those. It was one of those things. You wanted somebody else from outside your area. Go on, Big Al.
Yeah, we were just the opposite. We were very territorial. So the women in my neighborhood, the guys protected. And if you were from another neighborhood coming to date one of the girls in my neighborhood, then you were going to have a problem. And the same with us. If we went to another neighborhood to date a girl, it was going to be a problem.
Oh yeah. Oh no, that was. Trust me, in New York City, that was what we did. Was our safety was you didn't go anywhere you didn't know somebody. So if you met, for example, if I'm going to the Bronx, I'm going to my cousin's house because everybody knows my cousins. So so you're not from there, but you know people from there. You know what I mean? You
So
always had to have
You
somebody you
hung
knew.
out there. Yeah, you hung out there. So when you went over there, you didn't go out into the different areas of that particular town or city unless you was with your cousins. You didn't go by yourself till the people got used to you. And then once they got used to you, that was your part of town. You can go out there by yourself. But for you to go out there and try to, get somebody and you didn't know anybody, it's just
That
like
was
what you
suicide.
said. They were very territorial.
Yeah, that was almost suicide because people used to come to our projects and walk home with no shoes on. Some walk in their underwear. Said MC Shan had a record back in the 80s called The Bridge. And he said, said if you come from out of town, you couldn't fight and win. And that was because we had some pretty girls in the projects. And dudes would come, and if they ain't know nobody, they was getting got. They got. That's just how it was. So like I said, a way to kind of mitigate that was somebody out there because when they ask you who you going to see, yeah, I'm going to see my cousin so and so. Oh, all right, and they let you go. But if you ain't know nobody, you took your life in your own hand, whether you were male or female, because them girls will jump on them girls too, get their clothes ripped off and stuff like that. But it ain't and I know I say like it's a bad thing, but you still got to meet people face to face. It's not like, you know, you never met them before and you going out there and it's like online, it's the first time you see them after you talking to them for a couple of years on, over the phone and stuff and you going to see them. That really didn't happen that much because usually you met through some connection, whether it was summer camp, whether it was somebody's cousin coming over, you met that way, and then you would go out there and say, I know this person, but you just didn't go. It's not like it is today with online where you just go and you don't know nobody knows you. Because if you go to certain places, you may not leave with everything you came with. And I could attest to that because I almost got jumped when my best friend was like, "Don't go in that store, don't go in that store," and my autistic hard headed behind went into the store and I got punched in the face. I learned after that. Listen to your boy. Listen to your boy. He knows what to tell you. But so the difference now is going forward. How did you talk to your children about dating, sexuality, um, just things going on because they were under a different they were under a different thing. Miss Sum Sum, how did you talk to your kids about dating?
I just pretty much showed them all the videos of what can happen when you're not safe and what, you think you're invincible, but this can happen. And just a lot of examples and just constantly, you staying in their ear and, getting to them before their friends get to them, pretty much.
Did it work?
So far, so good.
And what does that, I know what it means, but I want you to say it. What does that mean?
What you mean, scared straight?
Scared straight, scared gay, it don't matter. What didn't you want to happen? What did you prevent?
Pretty much,
Unwanted pregnancies.
yes, pretty much, diseases, helping them to prevent making choices that they may not want to make as far as pregnancy and all that good stuff. So just kind of uh just constantly staying in their ear. I don't care how much they think you nag them, just always being in that ear and just constantly, um showing them, not just telling them, but showing them what could happen. And so hopefully when they go to make certain decisions, images may pop in their head to be like, okay, let me do it like this because I don't want this to happen to me. So, just it, and it, it's hard because, you know, like like the conversation earlier, times have changed and um everything now is in your face. They see everything. They know more than us. There's nothing
Yes,
that
they
I could
do.
tell my daughter about anything. She will probably be able to teach me at this particular point. But the goal is to get to them when it's not at that point and guide them the direct, in a good way. Now, I use this example all the time. Uh, you know, and I'm just going to use something as simple as a woman's breast. Some people make a big deal, oh, look at her breasts and all of that stuff. But, I remember raising my children to teach them in a, not a medical way, but just letting them know this is what breasts are. They're, most of the time they there to feed children. They have a purpose. So putting that perspective and guiding them in that way so that their friends won't go to them and be like, oh, look at her boobs and da 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 da, and making it something and changing what it's supposed to be and making it something fresh and nasty when they know the real purpose of it. So they can't, nobody can go to them with the okey doke. They'll, even if they come at them with all of that stuff, they know what the purpose of things are. Reproductive, this is why, this is how it is on the earth. This is why things, happen the way they do. So, you know, that's the best I can do. That's the most I can say about it. But getting in their ear before their friends do and changing it and
Now,
making things ugly.
now here's it. I'm about to say that I was going to go there. I am. Doesn't that kind of encourage body dysmorphia?
In what way?
Well, if you're treating it as reproductive organs, and I'm not knocking how you did it. I think you did the right thing. But if you give it to them clinically, they won't look at themselves. They might look at themselves and be like, oh, no, I don't. This is not. I don't know. They might have body dysmorphia because everybody has a form of body dysmorphia, no matter how old you are, no matter where you grew up and what circumstances you do. We all have some sort of, because we know people are looking at us. Now, it's good that you taught them the actual anatomy as opposed to treating them as as a body part, and that's a good thing. But sometimes that can lead to where they don't know how to handle when somebody talks to them out the way like that,
Well,
especially women, especially
right.
young.
Well, I mean, my daughter now, I think I did a decent job. I mean, not to blow up my daughter's spot, but I'm pretty sure I'm willing to gamble my life that she has not crossed. that line yet. She's about 18 years old, and she has not experienced the big O or anything of that nature as of yet.
At
And
least as
so,
far as you know.
oh, I trust me, I know because the hymen is intact. But
How
with
do you
that
how do you
being
know that? You go down there and look every month, like
no, no, we had a physical at the doctor and for school and all of that stuff. So I know for a fact that she's still on top. Praise God. But I contribute that to letting her know because for me, I can only speak for me. But I remember growing up and sneaking and watching the little Showtime and HBO After Dark shows and the women and how they made sex look so glamorous and great. And it just made you so curious and everything like that. And that wasn't even the detailed sex. That was just the soft porn.
right.
And so they made that all glamorous and beautiful and made you curious. You wanted to try. You wanted to see what all that greatness looked like. But
That's
then when reality hit, it was like, oh my God, what the hell did I just get into?
and but that's the thing though, is that I understand what you're looking at, but people are like and I think corn has really messed up people's expectations on what sexuality is. That's just,
Definitely.
you
Definitely.
know, however, it's, hormones are going to hormone. And if they get with the right or wrong person that makes their things tingle,
Yep.
you never you never know what's going to happen. And a lot of times men are physically stimulated, women are emotionally and mentally stimulated. Because you can't get a woman hot unless you're a woman, unless they get your brain going. So you hear, I'm glad your daughter is deciding to wait for somebody special, but like I said, corn has really, really messed up our kids as far as being able, just the proliferation of it. Um, it gives them a skewed sense of sexuality. Big Al, you're the senior, you're the most seasoned person in here. Um, when did you talk to your kids, and did you talk to your daughters and sons differently?
Uh, I talked to my kids at around the age of 13. And I didn't talk to them differently only because at 16, I was already a father. So I'm never going to call any of my kids mistakes, but I wanted to make sure that my children were safe. And thank God, all five of my children didn't have children until they were married. And that's really what I wanted to do because it was not really fair to the mothers, having children at that early age. And both of the girls were both 15 and I was 16. And so, my parents made me do the right thing. I had to get a job and take care of those babies, buy Similac diapers, and that was my nickname in high school, Similac. Uh, but all of my kids do well together. But I showed my sons and my daughter the right way using a banana to put on a condom and the right way to take it off. Because if you put it on the right way and take it off the wrong way, you can still have a problem. So
Yeah,
I made sure that I taught them because, you know, I just didn't want them to be in a situation where those hormones start going and, a young boy whispering the right thing in your ears will make you do things. And looking at some of the love letters that young girls at 11 and 12 were sending my sons about performing oral sex and all the other things that they were going to do to my sons. That's the thing that really made me say, hey, I need to get on top of this early and make sure I
Agreed.
teach them so that they don't find themselves in the same position I was in at a
Right, right, right. And that's, and I thank goodness, that none of my, well, I don't think any of my nieces and nephews, maybe one or two, might have had a child at a teen. And my sisters didn't have children till they were at least 20. So that was, that was my brother had a kid at 14, but that's that happens. But the overall thing is that, we need to talk to our kids. We need to talk to our grandkids if we got them. We need to ensure that they understand that babies are forever. Once they come to life, you gotta it don't stop. It don't stop. And if you're not married, it just makes it that much that much harder, not worse, but harder to deal with life. And I think we as the elder statespeople, we need to continue to guide and be not in their ear, but remind them that kids need stuff. And if you like money, don't have kids or have kids when you got money. And that's the biggest thing because people could promise everything until a kid born. Once a kid born, people have a tendency to disappear and check their lunch and check and stuff like that. But on that note, this show went pretty quickly. I think this was a great subject, and the show went pretty quickly. We're going to continue this next week, and I'll talk about Gen X, Boomers, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha because Gen Alpha is just joining the dating ranks. So we got to be ready for that. And before I go, Apple, you got anything? Chocolate Pearl, you got anything?
Dr. Pro had to drop off.
All right then. All right then. I want to thank everybody out there in YouTube land, in TikTok land, in Facebook land, Instagram land, Rumble land. I want to thank everybody who came on and hopefully you learned something. Hopefully we had a good conversation for you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. All my socials. Go on Linktree, look for Dlight7, and you'll find all my socials. If you got anything you want me to talk about, send it to me. I'll get it out there. And on that note, I'm gonna say, never make love by the garden gate. Though love is blind, the neighbors ain't. Y'all be good and have a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday and Wednesday, rest of the week.